Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. It's good. Check 1 2.
Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, I'm Simon Alote, Director General of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, and I'm honored to be your chairperson. I want to assure you that I will do my best to accomplish all of our work and to conduct the work of the Technical Commission efficiently and in a fair manner. I'm told that we have over 220 papers for the Technical Commission for this assembly. Almost half of these are information papers. This is 10% more than the last assembly and many more than we were expecting. A number of papers raise issues that were discussed at the 13th Air Navigation Conference last year and are covered by recommendations of the conference, on which action has been approved by the Council and is reflected in the proposed budget being presented to the Assembly. Given the heavy workload that we are facing, I think we can probably move efficiently through the papers. The convening of the 13th Air Navigation Conference, with its focus on technical issues a year ahead of the Assembly, meant that work items requested by states were considered for the updated global plans and included in the budget preparation discussions. If new work items are recommended by this commission, the difficulty is that no allowance will have been made for it in Icao's triennial budget being considered in the Administrative Commission. Distinguished delegates, I note that some working papers are asking that Icao gives priority to a particular issue or that Icao should ensure funding for some work. We should acknowledge that the Icao Council and the Air Navigation Commission have procedures to prioritize the work program with the larger picture in mind. I think we can recognize that a working paper recommendation to prioritize or fund a particular activity is not intended to diminish the importance of other critical activities, and we need to take care when using such terms in our recommendations, particularly given the proposed regular program budget being presented to the Assembly by the Council. I'm sure the Secretariat will speak a little more on this as the meeting progresses. Nevertheless, it's great that you are taking such an interest in the work of the Assembly, and we thank you greatly for that. We will, however, have to work very hard and be very efficient if we are going to get through the business you have presented to us here. There are, of course, issues that bear significant discussion, and some of them may be a bit contentious, which will be a challenge for me to navigate through. I will therefore be relying on a collective spirit of cooperation as I summarize the discussions and make proposals on the way forward. After being approached as a potential chairman of the Technical Commission, I began working closely with the Icao Secretariat, and we have developed an action plan with some rules. As you know, Icao is full of rules. These are based on the standing rules of procedure of the Assembly, i.e. Rule 22 of Doc 7600. I will adhere strictly to the standing rules to enable us address all the working papers, complete our work, and accomplish our objectives in a fair and efficient manner. Now, these are the rules. 1, we have batched the papers logically into groups. I will announce the working papers to be addressed in a given group, and will then ask the presenters to introduce the papers one after the other until all the papers in the group are presented. There will also be These will also be presented in a PowerPoint slide on the screen behind us. Then we'll have a discussion. 2, if a state or organization has issued more than one paper under an agenda item, we may ask you to present all of those papers in one introduction and stay within the 2-minute requirement. Again, this will be fair to everyone. 3, I will ask that if your paper is supportive of a previous paper, and in particular, a paper presented by the Secretariat on behalf of the Council, that you should be extremely brief, announcing your support, and perhaps just a few more words. 4, no information paper will be presented for discussion. However, they will be mentioned and listed in the PowerPoint slide on the screen above for awareness, and they will be referenced in the report. I also like to thank states and organizations in advance for sharing in the information papers their experiences on a wide variety of issues. 5, it will be very difficult to draft or amend assembly resolutions in this large commission on the fly, as it is often said. So I'll do everything possible to avoid drafting groups. We will always, however, offer a way forward. 6, you will certainly understand that I cannot allow long or repetitious interventions. I will also ask that you do not request to take the floor a second time on a given point unless I ask you to do that, usually for clarifications. So again, I'll make use of my gavel, and please do not take it personal. We want to have an efficient meeting. 7, I'll be methodical in my approach to discussions and will attempt to wrap up discussions in short order with proposals for moving forward. I will look for your support. 8, if there is not sufficient support for a resolution or any other proposal, I will close the debate and move the discussion forward with a proposal, and again, I will look for your support. 9, to all our colleagues from international organizations and other observers to this commission, I am aware that the limited capacity of this room has made it difficult to provide assigned seating to everyone. We have tried to ensure that those organizations presenting working papers to the Technical Commission have an assigned seat. But it has not been possible to seat everyone on the floor, and some of you are in the balcony where interpretation and a microphone for interventions are provided. Please note, however, that if additional state delegations arrive today or tomorrow, we may have to adjust the seating on the floor. 10, I'll do everything possible to ensure that you have a fair hearing. You'll be given the opportunity to present papers, and you'll be called on when you request the floor. For those international organizations seated in the balcony, a button is available for you to raise when you want to request the floor. Please be sure to clearly state your organization as you begin your intervention. In accordance with standing protocol, I will call on the delegations from states before the observers. Understand, however, that if there is not sufficient support from the states for your proposals, I will close the debate. 11, last but not the least, make sure that you are on time. Time is a limited resource, and I intend to make full use of the few meetings we have. Morning meetings will start precisely at 0900 hours, and afternoon meetings begin at 14 hours. That's 2 p.m. We will not break for coffee in these limited sessions, but there will be a coffee dispenser in the foyer which you can avail yourself of at any time. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you in advance and to ask you to work closely with me in a spirit of friendship and cooperation. And I look forward to a good session with fruitful results and a successful outcome that we can all be proud of. And now we'll go to point 1 on the order of business, which I believe you have the soft copies. Okay, just an administrative announcement. Since this is the first meeting of the Technical Commission of the session, I want to take this opportunity to formally welcome all of you delegates. We cherish your presence, and together we're going to have a very, very interesting and successful meeting. I however request that we all switch off our phones. We can't have all these funny ringtones during the session. Or alternatively, you can put it on silent or vibrate so that the meeting is not disturbed. And also, please take note of the fire exits at the front and back of the room in case of an emergency. As I said earlier on, we will not have a formal coffee break. We could always go in and out to grab a cup of coffee to enable us maximize the use of limited time. The meeting will adjourn at 12 noon for us to have a lunch break. We go to point 2 of the order of business. In accordance with Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of Procedure for the Assembly, the commissions shall elect their own vice chairman. I will now invite nominations for the first and second vice chairs. The floor is open for nominations for the first vice chair and second. Yeah. Costa Rica, you have the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning to all of my colleagues from around the world. I would like to nominate Haydar Gelsin from Turkey and Hashima Yoshimura of Japan as first vice chair and second vice chair of the Technical Commission, respectively. Haydar has been fundamental in bringing changes to the development of civil aviation and is well known in Icao. And Hashime was the last president of the Air Navigation Commission and is a very good leader. So I put this to the consideration of my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Costa Rica. Any seconder? Panama, you have the floor.
Panama endorses Costa Rica's nomination for the first and second vice chairs of the Technical Commission. Panama is familiar with the credentials and background of these two professionals, and we know that they are an excellent choice to guide our work and deliberations in the Technical Commission. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Panama, for seconding. Germany, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for being elected as our chair for this commission. I fully endorse and support the nominations, especially the one for Mr. Yoshimura, who has served the Icao Air Navigation Commission for many years and has proven himself as a good team leader during his presidency of the Air Navigation Commission. Last but not least, I would like to thank Mr. Steve Creamer, Director ENB and Secretary of this Commission, and his team for the great job and work and support you are providing to us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Costa Rica, Panama, and Germany for the nominations. So on this note, I declare Mr. Haydar Yalçın from Turkey as first Vice Chairman of the Technical Commission, and Mr. Hajime Yoshimura from Japan as the second Vice Chairman. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you very much. We now move to point 3 of the order of business, and I'll invite the Secretary, Mr. Steve Creamer, Director of the Air Navigation Bureau, to take the floor to introduce Secretariat staff members. Mr. Creamer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to serve as the lead secretary for the Technical Commission and to work with you in this Technical Commission for the next couple of days. I am not doing this alone. I am supported by a team which is literally hundreds of staff members, both in headquarters and in the regional offices, who have worked with us to prepare the material for this commission. But I'd like to acknowledge the leadership in the Air Navigation Bureau specifically for their role, and they have gathered to my left, your right, on the right side of the hall here, so that I can introduce them to you should you need to interact with them for engagement and interventions during the course of the commission. To begin with, closest to me, Ms. Leslie Carey is the Chief of the Remote Piloted Aircraft Systems Section. Mr. Marcus Costa is the Chief of the Accident Investigation Section. Mr. Chris Dalton is the Chief of the Airspace Management and Optimization Section. Mr. Salo da Silva is the Chief of the Global Interoperable Systems Section. Mr. Michael De Leon is the Head of the Integrated Planning Unit. Not shown, Mr. Yuri Fatah is the Program Manager for Multidisciplinary Priorities next door in the Executive Committee. Ms. Elizabeth Ganin is the Project Coordinator for Safety Management. Dr. Johanna Jordan is the Chief Aviation Medical Section. Mr. Miguel Marin is the Chief of the Flight Operations Section. Mr. Martin Marino is the Secretary for the Global Aviation Safety Plan. Mr. Marco Marins is the Chief of the Integrated Aviation Analysis Section and currently the Acting Chief of the Programs Coordination and Implementation Section. Dr. Michelle Millar is the Program Manager for the Next Generation of Aviation Professionals and the Technical Officer for Human Factors. Mr. Tom Mistos is not shown. He's the Chief of the Oversight Support Section, also next door. Mr. Miguel Ramos, the Program Manager for the Global Aviation Safety Oversight Section, or System, excuse me. And Mr. Thor Thormodson, who's been, over the last 6 months, the Acting Chief of the Safety and Air Navigation Oversight Audit Section. Dr. Catherine Rooney, the Chief of the Cargo Safety Section. And finally, Mr. Yang Wang, the Chief of the Airport Operations and Infrastructure Section. As you can see, this is a comprehensive list of subjects and expertise which has been brought to bear for your support, and we appreciate your cooperation during the commission. I'll also note they are led ably by 3 deputy directors who you were introduced to on Tuesday morning in the plenary. Mr. Catalin Redu, the Deputy Director for Safety, Mr. Richard McFarland, the Deputy Director for Air Navigation, serving us upstairs in the battle room, and Mr. Denis Guindon, the Deputy Director for Monitoring and Oversight, also next door in the executive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I think they deserve a round of applause. So, as the Secretary said, they are available to provide detailed clarification on any technical issues. And I personally work with a lot of them, and they are really, really great at their work. So they are like the engine of this great organization. So We truly appreciate the work of the Secretariat. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We now go to item number 4 on the order of business, and that's on the general working arrangements. I believe I covered the general working arrangements in my opening remarks. Unless anybody has a question on the floor, we could look at it into more details. I see none. So we are making good progress. So we move to points 5 and 6 on the order of business. 5 is on the review of the agenda, and 6 is on item 27, annual reports of the Council of the Assembly. I'll invite the Secretary to speak on points 5 and 6. And Secretary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On agenda item 5, the review of the agenda items for the Technical Commission are outlined in working paper 1. Essentially, item number 27 is the annual reports of the Council to the Assembly for 2016, 17, and 18, which, while not presented here, are available online as supplements to the proceedings. Agenda item number 28, the Aviation Safety and Air Navigation Policy. Agenda item 29, the Aviation Safety and Air Navigation Regional Implementation Coordination Mechanisms. And then finally, agenda item 30, which is other issues to be considered by the Technical Commission, and of course, any other business. I hope this agenda is acceptable, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So, as was presented by the Secretary, the annual reports of the Council for 2016, 2017, and 2018, and the supplementary report covering the first 6 months of 2019 are available online at www.icao.int meetings A40/pages documentation reference document ASPX. So you could take time to go through the full detailed report. So the technical committee is invited to note those parts of the report within its field of competence. Are there any comments on agenda item 27? I see none. So the Commission notes, Germany, you have the floor. No? Okay, thank you. The Commission notes without comment. That's my conclusion for this agenda item 27. The Commission notes without comment the work accomplished in the air navigation field during the past 3 years. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, we'll now invite the Secretary to do a PowerPoint presentation on agenda item 27. The Secretary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, good morning, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure on behalf of the Secretariat, as part of the review of the last 3 years of work in agenda item 27, to provide you with a short update regarding your collective progress in the safety and air navigation capacity and efficiency strategic objectives. Before I do that, I'd like to thank all of the member states present today for your engagement in this work. It's humbling to serve as the Secretary to your work and helping to guide the organization. We'd like to welcome all of our colleagues from the international organizations who liaise with Icao as well. Again, we're grateful for your engagement, your interest in, and especially your tangible support for the work of the Icao and the member states. And while our welcome is sincere, we do need to apologize for the lack of seating on the main floor. We are literally standing room only for many of our sessions and proceedings, including here in the Technical Commission this morning. We know that most of the international organizations and observers have been assigned seating in the public gallery, and as noted by the chairman, we have provided dedicated microphone and language facilities, and we will be watching attentively for your interventions. So I'd like to briefly touch on 3 points this morning. First, I'd like to highlight a few achievements for the organization. The new Global Aviation Safety Plan you'll consider today has outlined a transition strategy to move to a safety performance foundation, and it sets ambitious safety targets for all of us to work towards together. It is also closely integrated with the new Global Air Navigation Plan update, which becomes a web-enabled tool that we believe will increase its visibility and usefulness for all stakeholders. It includes a new system performance assessment tool. The goal of this tool is to promote a performance-based approach for cost-effective modernization of the air navigation system. The tool guides the aviation community in the application of a 6-step performance management process and in the selection of relevant operational improvements within the ASBU framework. It also provides a link to other tools in Icao on cost-benefit analysis and forecasting, and guidance on safety management, implementation, environment, and regional priorities. In other words, we're working to expose the necessary data for you to make sound, defendable decisions regarding your own national and regional priorities. Collaborative decision-making is key for a cost-effective modernization of the air navigation system, and therefore all relevant aviation stakeholders should be involved when using this tool. It is ready for validation. We also are introducing the iASBUs, an information sharing platform. The information within this website has been provided by different members of the aviation community. Its objective is to share research, development, and validation results related to operational and technical matters, as well as information on deployment and lessons learned regarding the implementation of the ASBU elements at the regional, state, and industry levels. Turning to safety, following the 39th Assembly, Icao called together an advisory group called the Group of Experts for the USOP CMA Structured Review, or the GEUSR for short, who completed a comprehensive review of the safety CMA with 37 separate recommendations, largely endorsed by the Air Navigation Commission and the Council, and work to implement these suggestions is underway to make the CMA and the online framework more accessible and easier to use for the member states. These are just a few of the key accomplishments from the past triennium. I hasten to add that this short list does not include the phenomenal work that our regional offices around the world are doing to support you in your role as regulators and, in many cases, service providers. I also won't go into the rest of the details because, frankly, it would take an hour. And I largely did much of this last year in October at the 13th Air Navigation Conference, where many of you also participated. And you'll recall that this technical detail is not the intended purpose this year for the Technical Commission, as we envisioned it. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'd like to remind you that the objectives set for this Assembly's Technical Commission are to provide high-level strategic guidance to the overall Icao organization. We did not anticipate, and frankly, we do not believe that you need to undertake substantive technical discussions here at the Assembly. Many of you will recall the 2 weeks of proceedings in the Air Navigation Conference this past October, and that was preceded 10 months earlier by the 1-week Global Air Navigation Industry Symposium, combined with the Safety and Air Navigation Implementation Symposium. Altogether, states and industry leaders have met for a total of 3 weeks, defining and refining the contents of the Global Aviation Safety Plan and the Global Air Navigation Plan. We also deliberated on the future of safety oversight, including robust discussion on the Global Aviation Safety Oversight System Strategy. We reviewed the Universal Safety Oversight Program, and you recommended further improvements. You also recommended accelerating work on the trust framework, new entrants, and other innovative technologies entering the aviation system. In all, you gave us 54 concrete recommendations, which were all endorsed by the Air Navigation Commission and subsequently by the Icao Council. Our objective with these activities was to more completely define the program requirements in time for consideration in the Council's triennial budget preparation leading up to this assembly. Armed with this intelligence, we sought to rationalize the scope of our ambition within the Icao budget. We did. So I'd like to ask you to give yourselves a round of applause. Well done. Now there's irony in your success. Our ambition exceeds the Council's proposed budget substantially. In fact, while we recommended that the work would require assistance from up to 12 full-time technical officers to be hired by Icao, along with all of the work you would have to provide, we were instructed to reduce our staffing by 2 positions at the beginning of the triennium in the regular program. So we're not here to roll up our sleeves and develop further technical work. Our objective is to review for endorsement the global plans that you've labored over for the past 3 years, and to review the suitability of the regional implementation and coordination mechanisms which have been laid out before you in the work program. That was the agenda that the Council approved last year, and we circulated to you at the beginning of this year. Honestly, I don't believe that we did an adequate job for you in communicating your success in obtaining the endorsement of last year's program. So many of you have written to this assembly with issues that fall into other items in this technical commission agenda. In fact, you'll find that many of the papers duplicate previously approved work plans by the Council. And that's because the visibility into those plans is just not adequate to help you in this regard. So that's feedback that we already take in the Secretariat. So agenda item 30 covers a broad range of topics. And despite the communication shortcomings I just described, we do believe we are on the right track consolidating our technical discussions into a meeting, a high-level decision meeting, either a high-level safety conference or an air navigation conference midway through each triennium. It helps clarify the resource requirements and does quantify our resource needs more accurately. In time, we believe that this will help update the Council to more fully accommodate the requirements that you are declaring during those meetings. That's why you'll see us proposing a high-level safety conference in early summer 2021, so we can improve on the planning work that we did this past cycle. Beyond this planning work, we will also work under the instructions from the Council and the ANC to better align our SARP's development tempo with your needs, better embracing innovation and other multidisciplinary activities, relying on our industry partners for more of that work than ever before. My preliminary view of what will come from your work here is briefly outlined on this slide. The High-Level Safety Conference in 2021, a focus on safety management system deployment and data-driven performance-based approach to safety improvements. New methods for the technical assistance and cooperation to be engaged with. To identify the next generation of the USOAP program beyond the recommendations from the GEUSR, to stand up the trust framework to enable a safe and secure digitally connected environment that digitizes certificate authority in a secure way, system-wide information management deployed on that infrastructure, and guidance for dual-frequency multi-constellation GNSS. Implementation of the global reporting format for runway surface conditions. A comprehensive plan for engagement on innovation with emerging industry. And finally, support for new thinking by the Council and the Air Navigation Commission on standard development models which are more accessible and easier to interact with. So the next triennium has a big list of activities to be undertaken, and we have high expectations for your continued engagement with Icao. The Council will be faced with some difficult policy decisions to enable more work to be done collaboratively with industry and states, and we're looking forward to your support to help with achieving those objectives. Those are the summary of my remarks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for the opportunity to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Secretary. So we've noted a tremendous work and achievements by the Secretariat and Council over the last triennium. And it's reassuring to note the various tools you've developed to move towards a performance-based approach and cost-effective modernization of the air navigation system. And okay, St. Lucia wanted the floor, but they've gone off. And I also took note of the fact that this meeting is to provide high-level strategic guidance to the work of the Assembly. So we'll not go into nitty-gritties of technical discussions. This will be reserved for the high-level safety and high-level air navigation conferences. It's good to note that. And I also noted the statement by the Secretary that a number of papers submitted have already been previously approved by the Council in the work program of the Secretariat. So again, it calls for enhanced communication between Secretariat and State, so that some of these repetitions may not, okay. Thank you very much, Secretary, for the comprehensive presentation of the work of the Council for the past 3 years. Are there any questions from the floor? I see none. So I thank you very much, and this will then conclude agenda items points 5 and 6 on the order of business. Thank you. Welcome. We now move to point 7 of the order of business. It's on agenda item 28, aviation safety and air navigation policy. So in this agenda item, that's agenda item 28, the Commission is invited to endorse the new editions of the Global Aviation Safety Plan and the Global Air Navigation Plan, GAMP. The Global Aviation Safety Plan, or GASP, sets forth Icao's safety strategy in support of the prioritization and continuous improvement of aviation safety. The GAMP provides high-level strategic direction to drive the evolution of the global air navigation system and to meet the expectations of the aviation community. The global plans take into account action by Icao on the relevant recommendations of the 13th Air Navigation Conference, which was held here in Montreal in October 2018. In this regard, the report of the outcomes of the conference is presented by the Icao Council. The Council also proposes the adoption of a revised consolidated statement of continuing Icao policies and associated practices related specifically to air navigation, that is Assembly Resolution A3812. To facilitate the discussion of related subjects, the papers were grouped or have been grouped in different batches. Group 1 deals with the GASP. Group 2 relates to safety management policies. Group 3 deals with the GAMP. Group 4 relates to the results of the 13th Air Navigation Conference. And finally, Group 5 is a proposal for a revised consolidated statement of continuing Icao policies and associated practices related specifically to air navigation. Please note that where there is more than one state presenting a paper, I will only call upon the state that will present it. On the screen, you will see who else is associated with the paper, just to manage time effectively. We will start with the batch 1 papers. And the batch 1 deals with the Global Aviation Safety Plan. I will now invite the Secretariat to present Working Paper 51, which addresses the updated Global Aviation Safety Plan. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Working Paper 51 presents the 2020-2022 edition of the Global Aviation Safety Plan, or GASP, as approved by the Council of Icao. The GASP sets forth Icao's safety strategy to continuously improve aviation safety. The actions in this working paper invite the Assembly to endorse the 2020-2022 edition of the GASP, request member states and other key stakeholders to work together to implement national and regional aviation safety plans that are consistent with the GASP, and adopt the proposed revision to Assembly Resolution A39-12 on global planning for safety and air navigation as presented in Appendix B to Working Paper 51, up to and including Appendix A of the proposed resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Secretariat, for WP 51. I will now call on Brazil to present Working Paper 325. Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of Brazil, I'd like to congratulate you on your nomination for chairing this commission. Mr. Creamer, fellow delegates, good morning. Working Paper 325 supports the continued evolution of the Global Aviation Safety Plan as the high-level framework to strengthen aviation safety worldwide. The GASP encourages states to develop national safety plans in order to remain focused both on reducing accident rates and on the continuous improvement of its safety oversight capabilities. The paper invites the Assembly to encourage states, regions, and international organizations to support a collaborative approach to develop national and regional safety plans, invite Icao to promote the principles which support all states in ensuring commitment and development of timely and accurate national safety plans aligned with the regional and global plans, request Icao to support states to build capacity for developing and monitoring aviation safety plans aligned with regional and global safety plans, and more importantly, Brazil and SAM and LACAC states would like to invite the Assembly to support the revision of the GASP proposed by the Council. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Brazil. I'll now invite Bolivia to present WP 195. Bolivia, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chairman. A very good morning to all the representatives from around the world. Bolivia is presenting Working Paper 195 on the implementation of the SAM Region Safety Plan. and we give information on implementation of the plan and the strategic objectives, indicators and targets for the SAM region, the performance indicators for effective implementation of safety oversight, critical elements of the safety oversight system, implementation of the SSP and service provider SMS implementation, and the aim is to reduce the regional accident rate. We asked the Assembly to support implementation of the SAM SP and allocate resources as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bolivia. It's now the turn of Peru to present WP 401. Peru, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good morning to colleagues. In this working paper, the SAM region declares its commitment to work collaboratively to achieve the targets and objectives set out in the GASP 2020 to 2022. We're developing a safe, sustainable system and ensuring that no country is left behind. The SAM region praises Icao's decision to clarify the important role of RASCs in establishing collaborative groups for integrated risk management based on data-driven methodology. It's very important to be able to share information in a protective environment that's non-punitive. Nevertheless, the SAM region proposes that in the next GASP revision and in the various global plans led by Icao, consideration be given to including aspects relating to capacity building in states. A state with strong capacities and competent personnel will be able to robustly implement Icao's global plans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peru. Before I invite the Secretariat to provide clarifications on these papers presented, I want to remind all of us that a number of papers, like some of those presented, were presented by a group of states and supported by other states. So for us to manage our time very efficiently, we note that the co-presenters all support the paper. Okay, 5 states present the paper. There's no need for the four other states to say they support the paper. They've already presented. And also, once certain states support the paper, we've noted it. It's already documented. So there's no point raising, calling for the mic to say you support a paper you've already supported. This way, we'll be able to manage our time very, very efficiently. Thank you very much for your understanding. I'll now invite the Secretariat to provide any clarifications on the various WPs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everybody. We'd just like to make one clarification that we'll do it for this working paper, and just to remind all delegates of what Mr. Kramer said earlier. Anytime there's resources suggested, as in this case in paper 195, these should be referred to Council for consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Miguel. I'll now open the floor for contribution, discussions, and comments. Singapore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your election. And good morning as well to my fellow delegates. Singapore supports the enhancements made in the GASP 2020 to 2022 edition, as described in Icao's Working Paper 51. We also welcome the inclusion of the Global Aviation Safety Roadmap, which will serve as an action plan for the aviation community in achieving the GASP goals. We understand that a dashboard for the GASP goals will be made available. The opportunity for states to share their progress in achieving GASP goals is a bold step towards greater transparency as we strive towards the aspirational goal of 0 fatalities by 2030. The creation of a portal to identify emerging safety issues requiring further attention is also commendable. Singapore therefore endorses the GASP 2020-2022 edition and looks forward to rolling up our sleeves together with our fellow states and industry after these 2 weeks. We therefore echo the calls by Peru in Working Paper 401 and Brazil in Working Paper 325 to now work together on implementation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Singapore. Austria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to announce that Austria fully supports Working Paper 51 presented by Icao. We welcome and fully support the Global Aviation Safety Plan. We strongly appreciate the work of the Secretariat and the GASP study group. We intend to align the existing European plan for safety with the provisions contained in the Global Aviation Safety Plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Austria. Portugal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all colleagues. Portugal, as regards to the Working Paper 51, welcomes and fully supports also the GASP, which represents a fundamental guidance for the member states to develop and reinforce safety culture, allowing the identification of hazards and the development of mitigation measures that can contribute to a reduction of the number of fatalities in commercial aviation. In this regard, Portugal is very pleased with the work of the Secretariat of Icao. Portugal is implementing the National Operational Safety Plan on a yearly basis since 2018, in line with the European Aviation Operational Safety Plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your attention.
Thank you very much, Portugal. It's now the turn of Argentina to take the floor. Argentina, you have the floor.
Good morning. Congratulations to you, Chairman, on your election, and my warm greetings to all delegates present. Argentina supports all four papers presented, 51, 195, 325, and 401. On the basis of Secretariat work and Sam, we believe that the global plan at all levels is a joint strategy and requires coordinated efforts to continually improve the safety of our regions. GASP promotes coordination and collaboration in initiatives, and Argentina has been working hard on regional initiatives, so we believe it is very important to adopt these four papers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Argentina. Peru, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. The state of Peru would like to support Working Paper 195 presented by Bolivia. The SAM Region Safety Plan is a vital tool for the region so that we can have metrics and indicators to measure progress in safety performance in the region. We also support Working Paper 325 presented by Brazil, because Icao's support for Latin American states in implementing their national plans is essential. We believe that the objective of this instrument is to bring down accident rates and strengthen state oversight capacities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peru. United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United States strongly supports the continued evolution of the GASP as the high-level framework to enhance safety worldwide presented in Working Paper 51. GASP priorities should remain focused on reducing the global risk of aviation fatalities and the continuous improvement of safety oversight capabilities. As the high-level strategic plan for Icao states and stakeholders to evaluate performance improvements for aviation safety, it is important that the manner and the mechanism of the measurement is effective, accurate, and capable. The United States recognizes the work done by Icao and GASP Study Group in taking into consideration input from 13th Air Navigation Conference in revising the draft 2020 through 2022 edition of the GASP, and in particular, the changes to the proposed safety oversight margin metrics. We support an endorsement of the 2020 and 2022 edition of the GASP. The United States also supports Working Paper 325 and 401. However, with respect to Recommendation D in Working Paper 401, we recommend this be referred to the GASP Study Group for discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, United States. Dominican Republic, you have the floor.
Thank you, President, and congratulations for your election. La República.
The Dominican Republic would like to offer its support for Working Paper 51 by the Secretariat, which sets out the 2022 edition of the Global Aviation Safety Plan. This is, and also in line with this note, we give our support to Working Paper 325 presented by Brazil and 195 presented by Bolivia. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Dominican Republic. It's now the turn of Uruguay to take the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Very good morning to all colleagues of the aviation community. Uruguay would like to support Working Paper 401 presented by Peru. Having enough human resources that are properly skilled is an ongoing concern for any aviation authority that wants sustainability. This will ensure the continual upholding of their safety obligations. Critical Element 4 has a cross-cutting impact on all audit areas and continuing oversight by Icao. Certainly, authority will be strengthened and will benefit from these initiatives and will be able to maintain and improve their capabilities and retain their skilled personnel so that they can effectively implement their national plans in line with the regional and global plans and improve effective implementation levels over time. I'd also like to commend the efforts of all of those involved in the SAM region in developing the SAM-SP, the safety plan for our region. We would also like to strongly support Working Paper 195 presented by Bolivia. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Uruguay. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to congratulate you on your assumption of chairmanship. With regard to the safety margin in GASP change to safety oversight index, we would like to express our close concern over this. I would like to join the relevant concepts to calculate, to identify this change and follow-up measures, as well as strategies, so as to effectively improve safety level worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, China. Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias. Thank you, Chairman. First, I'd like to congratulate you on your election as chair of this commission, and very good morning to delegates and colleagues in the commission. I'd like to thank Secretariat for preparing Working Paper 51, which we fully support. We support the new GASP edition as a high-level guidance for safety, in particular measuring performance for safety. We also thank Bolivia, Brazil, and Peru for presenting their papers, which Colombia fully supports as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Colombia. Nicaragua.
Buenos días, señor.
Good morning, Chairman, and good morning to all present. Nicaragua expresses its full support for Working Paper 51 on the GASP and Working Papers 195, 325, and 401. Thank you.
Thank you. Bolivia, you want the floor again? Bolivia, you have the floor.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to give my support for Working Paper 51 on the GASP and Papers 325 and 401, presented by Brazil and Peru, respectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Bolivia. We now invite Ayata to take the floor. Ayata, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. IATA would like to support Working Paper 51 submitted by Icao. IATA recognizes the substantial work and effort by Icao to progress the GASP to a much more practical plan. Having a globally coordinated but regionally or state-specific plan that remains relevant to the specific safety risks of said region or state is not an easy task. IATA remains committed in its participation in working with all stakeholders to implement national and regional aviation safety plans aligned with the GASP, with the goal to continually reduce fatalities and the associated risk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayata. Canada, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, and good morning to all the representatives present. Canada supports Working Paper 51 and Working Paper 325 and appreciates all the work undertaken in developing the next edition of the GASP. Canada also encourages the collaboration and coordination related to national and regional aviation safety plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Canada. Nigeria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nigeria supports the Working Paper 51 presented by the Secretariat. Nigeria will want to reaffirm our commitment to the future evolution and effectiveness of the AFI Regional Aviation Safety Group and our support for the RSSOs in our sub-region. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigeria. Council, it's your turn to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all. We would like to thank the Council for Working Paper 51 and the Secretariat and GASP Steering Group for their work done on GASP 2020 through 2022. CANSO and CANSO members will continue to support Icao via the GASP Steering Group. CANSO also supports Working Papers 195, 325, and 401. CANSO is committed and stands ready to assist states when required to further enhance aviation safety by assisting states to implement the GASP and their national aviation system. The regional aviation safety groups will play an important role in the regional implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council. This concludes the first batch of papers, and I'll now attempt to summarize the discussions and conclusions. The Commission recommended that the Assembly endorse the 2020 to 2022 edition of the GASP. Then, two, the Commission recommended that the Assembly adopt the resolution proposed in Appendix B to WP 51 and as amended by the discussion of the Commission to supersede Assembly Resolution A3912. We have additional, the rest of this resolution related to the GAMP will be discussed in batch 3 of this agenda item. The Commission agreed on the need for Icao to continue its implementation support under the established Global Aviation Safety Program, including tools, guidance, and capacity building workshops to assist states and stakeholders to meet the GASP goals. The committee also agreed to consider inclusion of further training needs in future editions of the GASP. The Commission agreed on the need to increase the collaborative endeavors through voluntary mechanisms and for states and industry entities to actively participate in the respective regional aviation safety groups, that's the RASCs. Finally, the committee expressed support for the SAM Region Safety Plan as a regional plan which facilitates the implementation of the goals and targets found in the 2022 edition of the GASP. I hope this reflects discussions. Thank you. I see no request for the floor. So thank you very much. And this concludes our discussion on this first batch. Thank you very much. Okay, so we will now consider the second batch of working papers. The second batch of papers in this agenda item deals with safety management policy and has 3 papers for discussion. I'll now invite the Secretariat to present Working Paper 52, which addresses updates to Assembly resolutions related to safety management. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning to all. Working Paper 52 proposes updates to the current Assembly Resolution A38-3 related to the protection of accident and incident records and Assembly Resolution 38-4 on the protection of safety information. The proposed updates reflect relevant amendments to Annexes 13, 19, and 6 adopted by the Icao Council in 2006. The Assembly is invited to adopt the updated resolutions proposed in Appendixes A and B of the Working Paper 52. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. I will now invite Singapore to present WP 213. Singapore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Singapore is presenting Working Paper 213 together with the United States and IATA. In the period since the publication of this working paper, more co-sponsors have come on board. They now include China, Fiji, Indonesia, Marshall Islands, Nauru, Palau, Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, Trinidad and Tobago, and the United Kingdoms, and the Flight Safety Foundation. Safety information sharing is a safety performance enabler to achieve the GASP objectives. This paper highlights the progress of state industry collaboration programs on data sharing and analysis in support of safety risk management. We have the AP Share project in our Asia-Pacific region, the ASIAS program in the United States, and the Data for Safety program in Europe. In addition, the airlines have IATA's Flight Data Exchange. The paper highlights 4 key insights for a successful regional safety information sharing and analysis program. Firstly, the importance of having a modality for funding. Secondly, having a robust governance framework that protects the safety information collected. Thirdly, ensuring sufficient volume of data for robust analysis. Lastly, the need for active collaboration among all participating organizations and across programs. Similar to the collaborations between ASIAS and Data for Safety and between CAST ASIAS and IATA's Flight Data Exchange, there should be continual efforts to seek collaboration with other partner programs. This will allow states and industry to learn from one another. We encourage states and industry partners to work together to develop safety data collection and analytic capabilities, and to exchange best practices. The action items are in the executive summary of the paper. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Singapore. I'll now invite Venezuela to present WP 361. Venezuela, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Following our initial intervention, the delegation of Venezuela would like to extend its warm greetings to you and to all the delegations working toward development of the aviation system. Venezuela is presenting this working paper which reviews the challenges and experiences in implementing state safety programs and the pilot implementation program in the SAM region. We believe it's important to have guidance on the principle of scalability and in implementing state SSP. There could be a standardized classification based on state size and complexity in our regions, which would include minimum acceptance criteria with regard to legal issues and resource issues and safety performance measuring for effective management of safety. The Assembly is invited to consider scalability and introduce improvements in activities to implement the GASP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Venezuela. In concluding this batch, the information papers on the screen are noted and will be listed in the report for this agenda item. We will not present information papers as a general rule, so just note them. I will now give the floor to the Secretariat for any clarifications.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Secretariat would like the Commission to note that a safety management implementation website has been set up to facilitate the sharing and exchange of practical examples and experiences. State and international organizations have been invited to contribute. And also that the actions in Working Paper 213 are addressed in the draft revised resolution contained in Working Paper 51. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Secretariat. I'll now open the floor for discussions, contributions, and comments. Spain, you have the floor. No response from Spain. Argentina, you have the floor. It appears there's a problem with the public address system. Let's wait for the technicians to solve the problem. We go back to Spain. Spain, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chairman, and a very good morning to everyone. The Spanish delegation would like to express its support for Working Paper 213 by Singapore and other states and organizations. We believe it is essential to promote initiatives for collaboration among states and industry, which will improve safety and encourage information sharing on occurrences. It is essential to make progress in the use of instruments available to that make available to us new information technologies so as to better identify risks through the processes to collect and analyze data. We also support Working Paper 361 presented by Venezuela and states in the SAM region and the Latin American Civil Aviation Commission. By joining and strengthening efforts, we'll be able to improve implementation of the state safety programs. This kind of cooperation allows states to establish their programs in accordance with the complexity of their systems. In that respect, we would like to highlight Icao's efforts and the efforts of countries that are sharing their experiences in implementing the state safety programs on the Icao website for implementation of the SMS as a global platform for cooperation. Finally, we would like to support Working Paper 52 presented by Icao for updating the Assembly resolutions on safety management. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Spain. Argentina, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The delegation of Argentina would like to support Working Paper 52 on updating the resolutions of the Assembly to take account of amendments to the annexes and to protect safety information. We all know that if we don't have effective protection for information, that information will not be made available, and that unavailability will impede states from getting the information they need to manage safety. And the less we can see and measure, the less we can manage. So Argentina believes that it's essential to protect information and data. And we would also like to support paper 213 on exchange of records for continual improvements. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Argentina. Now, the screen is filling up so quickly. I hope it doesn't explode. So let's keep our interventions very, very short, please, in the interest of time. Portugal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Portugal would like to express its support to Working Paper 213 on state industry data collection, analysis, and information sharing for aviation safety. We fully concur with the clear message in this working paper that safety information sharing is identified under the Icao Global Aviation Safety Plan, GASP 10004, as a safety performance enabler to achieve the GASP objectives. Safety in aviation will benefit from the continuous voluntary data collection and analysis program that take advantage of the new technologies and support to safety risk identification. The promotion of a safety culture that encourage the exchange of information between industry and authorities on occurrences and the sharing of lessons learned have returned positive results throughout the years and should be encouraged. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Portugal. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Delegation of Japan would like to congratulate your chairpersons at the Technical Commission. And everybody knows that Mr. Simon Galotti was an excellent commissioner before, and then he always solved a very difficult problem and get a good consensus always. So we trust his ability. And also, thank you for nominating second vice chair for this committee with my capacity, and I will do my best to support chairperson and vice chairperson to get a fruitful outcome from the wisdom of the state and industry. So Japan would like to support all three working papers, and especially working paper 52 presented by the Secretariat. And Japan shares concern the use of the safety data, safety information, and the flight recorder recordings may not be used, may be used for purposes other than those for which they are collected, including disciplinary or civil administrative or criminal. So, Japan fully support this working paper 52. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. And thank you, AJ. The second vice is popularly known as AJ. It's easier to pronounce it. So AJ, thank you very much. We work very closely together on the council, and we appreciate your contributions. Thank you. It's now the turn of Italy to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, distinguished delegates. Italy supports working paper 213 presented by Singapore, other countries and associations. The collection, analysis and sharing of safety information is essential for a data-driven risk analysis activity in aviation. For this reason, European Union in 2014 published the Regulation 370, where Annex 19 and Icao Safety Management Manual principles have been included. The European Central Repository, established by such a EU regulation, collects all events occurring in Europe and is accessible through Internet to UE civil aviation authorities. More than 1 million occurrences have been stored in the ACR, and the availability of the EU database of safety information has proved to be very useful for the identification of safety issues and either European than at national level. Therefore, Italy strongly supports the working paper 213 presented by Singapore and related actions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Italy. Singapore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would like to support the Secretariat's working paper 52 and to make a suggestion to improve on the draft resolution in Appendix A. In the 9th paragraph, which is the second last paragraph on that page, we would like to amend the wording in order to strengthen the intent of that paragraph. Currently, the paragraph says, and I'll just read it very quickly, the need to incorporate into national laws the protection of accident and incident investigation records listed in Annex 13 in order to afford legal standing for the administration of the balancing test. We think that the legal standing is better reflected for the determinations of the competent authority and to facilitate the balancing test. Our proposal is in line with document 10053, the Manual on the Safety Information Protection, paragraph 3.7.1. And with your indulgence, I'll just very quickly read the amended paragraph. So it's the need to incorporate into national laws the protection of accident and incident investigation records listed in Annex 13 in order to, and here is where the amendment begins, in order to ensure that the determination of the competent authorities designated by member states has legal standing and to facilitate the administration of the balancing test by such authorities. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Singapore. The Secretariat has noted your proposed amendments to the resolution, and it will be incorporated. Thank you very much. I'll call on Uruguay to take the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. We would like to commend the efforts in the SAM region and the SSP pilot project group who worked in teleconferences and other meetings to share their views and experiences and challenges encountered in each of the states involved. This provides numerous alternatives and lessons learned, which will undoubtedly enrich the work to implement the SSP in each of our participating states. Uruguay supports working paper 361 presented by Venezuela. Thank you.
Thank you, Uruguay. South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. South Africa would like to support Working Paper 52, 213, and 361. The work that has gone into those is really commendable. However, please, if you can indulge me on IP 460. I know that it wasn't presented, but I think what I'm about to say, it's very, very important. There is a need to develop a framework to govern the legal liability of the GNSS signal providers and subsequent users needs to be established. We feel that the liability to pay compensation for damage and loss that a user may have sustained through the loss of GNSS. We know that the legal framework, it's something that has been given to the Legal Commission, but I was fortunate to attend a meeting yesterday of the Legal Commission. There was sort of uncertainty as to how to go about that. So there is a need for the Council to provide direction as well as guidance to the Legal Commission to be able to have something tangible with respect to the legal framework for the GNSS. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, South Africa. Dominican Republic, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. The Dominican Republic would like to express its support for Working Paper 213 presented by Singapore, as well as Working Paper 361 by Venezuela. And we fully support both the draft revisions of the resolution set out in Working Paper 52 by the Secretariat. We should take account of Singapore's proposed modifications to paragraph 1.2 in the resolution. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Dominican Republic. Peru, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. The State of Peru supports Working Paper 213, setting out the programs of cooperation between states, industry, and other stakeholders. These programs are highly relevant and will make it possible to identify risks and develop mitigation measures on the basis of data analysis on safety and safety information protection. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peru. Panama, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning to everyone. First, I would like to congratulate you as chair of this commission. Panama supports Working Paper 52 presented by the Secretariat, and we support Paper 213 by Singapore and other states and organizations. And finally, we support Working Paper 361 by Venezuela and states in the SAM region and LACAC states to promote safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicaragua, you have the floor.
Very good morning, Chairman. Thank you very much. Nicaragua supports Paper 213 by Singapore and Paper 361 by Venezuela. Nicaragua, as a member of COSESNA, also supports, particularly supports Singapore's paper because it has enriching information that can help us improve implementation of our PASOC system to assess occurrences. And the paper 361 is also important because it advocates support for states implementing SSPs and shares major challenges identified, in particular new skills for personnel, training and the use of data analysis instruments, and above all, a change toward a safety culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicaragua. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, and again, to allow me to intervene again. I have a comment to the intervention from Singapore to incorporate additional text in Appendix A of Working Paper 52. And I also would like to respect the guidance you provided in the beginning of the meeting that we should avoid entertaining a text. And especially also, I have a concern that because the proposal from Singapore is determination of competence authorities should have some legal status or background. But I recall the Amendment 1 of Annex 19 or Annex 13 is it's up to the states to decide who will be a competent authority. So sometimes it's maybe a judicial authority or sometimes accident investigation authority. So I object. I would like to object proposal from Singapore. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Japan, for drawing my attention to our own rules. We should try not to draft on the fly. And it's a very thorny issue, like you rightly said. Who determines who is the competent authority? So I don't know if the Secretariat will have a view on this proposed amendment and the objection to it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do agree with Japan. They correctly noted that the competent authority are designated by states and they are decided in accordance with national laws. But I believe the proposals for Singapore does not change that. The only thing that they are saying to clarify and to be in line with the existing document 10053, which would provide the legal standing for the competent authority to make a decision and would also facilitate the administration of justice. The determination of competent authority will be decided by states and in accordance with national laws. Thank you. Singapore, feel free to make any additional amendments.
Okay, so Secretariat has provided clarification. It's not like introducing new text, but it's aligning the text to existing Doc 1, is it 10053? Yeah, so thank you very much for the clarification, Secretariat. We'll now invite Costa Rica to take the floor.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you, Chairman. Costa Rica supports Working Paper 52 presented by the Council of Icao, and we take this opportunity to commend the Secretariat on their excellent work to promote aviation safety. Costa Rica also supports Working Paper 213 presented by Singapore, the United States, and IATA, and Working Paper 361 presented by Venezuela. And we would like to emphasize how important it is to ensure cooperation among states to promote safety and share information effectively and safely, securely. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa Rica. Bolivia, you have the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chairman. Bolivia would like to express its support for Working Paper 361 by Venezuela. We are sure that this paper highlights how appropriate it is to have states cooperate and collaborate. We think this is a crucial dynamic and to have harmonization. We believe that this will contribute to the achievement of the safety objectives. We also support Paper 213 because we think it's important not just to gather data and share information, but also it's important to have synergy between states and industry to achieve safety objectives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bolivia. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Australia supports Working Paper 213 from Singapore and co-sponsors. And we'd also like to support Working Paper 430, which I know from the Republic of Korea's information paper, but we think the paper makes some very good points. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Australia. IATA, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding Working Paper 52, excuse me, the protection of safety data and safety information is essential to ensure its continued availability, since the use of it for purposes other than maintaining or improving safety may inhibit the future availability of such information with an adverse impact on safety. As such, IATA appreciates and recognizes the work by Icao in introducing safety data and safety information protection SARPs in Annex 19 First Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, IATA. Council, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. CANSO supports Working Paper 52. It is CANSO's position that protecting safety data, safety information, and related sources is essential for just culture processes. Just culture is an important enabler of effective safety management and is critical to ensure the continued availability of safety data and safety information. The use of safety data and safety information for purposes other than maintaining or improving safety may inhibit the future availability of such data and information with a significant adverse effect on safety. CANSO also supports Working Papers 213 and 361. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council. So this concludes batch 2 of our papers. Now, before I go into the summary, we did indicate that IPs, information papers, will be included in the report. So South Africa's comments on the legal framework for GNS, it's noted. Once it's in the IP, it will be reflected. So I wish to reiterate again that we did not present IPs at this meeting. We've also noted the amendment to the draft assembly resolution as proposed by Singapore, and as clarified by the Secretariat, it seeks to align the text with, in the resolution, with what's already in Doc 10053 for consistency and clarity. It's not a new introduction. So may I summarize, with your permission, as follows, the conclusions for this discussion. The Commission agreed to submit for adoption by the plenary revised resolutions as presented in WP 52 and as amended to align the text with Doc 10053 to supersede Assembly Resolutions A38.3 and A38.4. The Commission recognized the progress of state industry collaborations to establish a regional information sharing and data analysis programs in support of safety risk management. The Commission called on states and administrations and industry partners to harness and optimize resources to develop safety data collection and analytic capabilities for the fulfillment of regional and global aviation safety priorities. And finally, the Commission called on states and industry partners to collaborate on exchange of best practices in safety information sharing and analysis and share methodologies for safety risk identification, analysis, and mitigation. Thank you very much for your cooperation. So this concludes the second batch of papers. I think we are doing pretty well, and we might be fortunate to have a coffee break tomorrow. We'll continue with the third batch of papers under agenda item 28. This batch deals with the Global Air Navigation Plan, or GAMP, as we popularly call it. I'll now invite the Secretariat to present Working Paper 24, which addresses the updated Global Air Navigation Plan. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Working Paper 24 presents the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan, which is available in an interactive format on the GAM portal. This edition of the camp is the response of the international aviation community to turn the challenges stemming from a new era in aviation into opportunities so that aviation can continue to boost social well-being worldwide. Furthermore, it is a call for action to all aviation stakeholders at global, regional, and national levels to join efforts and work together towards a common vision through the implementation of an evolutionary transformation of their navigation system driven by performance. To this end, Working Paper 24 invites the Assembly to endorse the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan and includes in its Appendix A a proposed revision to Assembly Resolution A39-12 Appendix B. Actions for the Assembly are in the Executive Summary box. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. I'll now invite Singapore to present Working Paper 215. Singapore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Singapore supports the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan and its inclusion under the Assembly Resolution A3812, which will be updated by the Working Paper 3 by the Council of Icao. Through the multi-layer structure, the GAMP provides the framework for regional, sub-regional, and national air navigation plans to be developed and implemented in a consistent, harmonized, and coordinated manner to improve civil aviation safety, capacity, and efficiency. The revised edition of the GAMP and its associated frameworks are a collective effort of the GAMP Multidisciplinary Vision Team and the ASPU Panel Project Team, which will be subsumed under the newly created GAMP Study Group, which Singapore is honored to be a member of. The growth and evolution of air traffic necessitates significant improvements to the current ATM infrastructure. The GAMP provides the strategy for modernization of air navigation services, and at the regional and national levels, the Icao regional officers and PERCs are well positioned to facilitate planning and implementation activities via the alignment of regional air navigation plan vis-à-vis the GAMP. The development by Icao on the electronic version of the regional air navigation plans in a similar format as the GAMP portal will also help to provide a harmonized view of the region's priorities and progress for the aviation community and at the same time achieve regional alignment with the GAMP. To ensure harmonization for the ATM modernization, we would like to urge member states to plan, develop and conduct air navigation activities through a collaborative decision-making process to raise awareness of key ATM concepts. In this regard, we would like to take this opportunity to echo Council's paper in Working Paper 203 on the use of collaborative decision-making mechanisms between states, administrations, and relevant stakeholders in the realization of a globally interoperable air navigation system. Finally, Singapore would like to inform the Assembly that in the period since the publication of this working paper, Fiji and Marshall Islands have indicated their desire to also be associated with this paper as co-sponsors. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Singapore. I'll invite Australia to present WP 230. Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Australia welcomes the outcomes of the Air Navigation Conference in relation to the GAMP, and the Icao Secretariat will be pleased to know that Australia can support the GAMP going forward, as is. However, we have some tasks for our new GAMP study group, which Australia is honoured to put forward as its membership. The first one is that we need a concise executive summary of no more than 2 pages. And if you're looking for a model of a very good executive summary, I would point you to the Global Aviation Safety Plan as an excellent executive summary. It is a document that can be given to decision makers to actually see what the document is trying to achieve. Secondly, we ask that the GAMP study group be formed along the same lines as the highly successful GASP study group. I'm aware that the GAMP study group has draft terms of reference that have been circulated, and I'm pretty sure they look okay, but we're very keen to see the GAMP study group be along the same format as the GAS study group, and that is a group that is run by a cross-section of states around the world from each region, that is assisted by a properly and appropriately resourced Icao Secretariat, and thirdly, is ably assisted by some very helpful industry expertise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Australia. I'll call on the Netherlands to present working paper 84. Netherlands, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations on your appointment. I'm pleased to introduce Working Paper 84 with regard to the Global Air Navigation Plan and ATM modernization, presented by Finland on behalf of the European Union and its member states, the other member states of the European Civil Aviation Conference, and by Eurocontrol. Furthermore, I would like to inform the Assembly that in the period since the first publication of this working paper, Canada, Singapore and the Republic of Korea have indicated their desire to be associated with this paper as co-sponsor. The Global Air Navigation Plan is one of the most important programming documents of Icao and is driving the digitalization and transformation of air navigation and air traffic management. We would like to express our support for the 2019 edition of the GAMP and the proposed maintenance process as presented by the Secretariat in Working Paper 24. It fulfills the requirements that we together defined at the Air Navigation Conference 13 last year. The maintenance of the GAMP should be synchronized with the global plans on safety and security to ensure the complementarity of the various objectives. This approach should also encompass the regular assessment of the integration of innovation into the existing Icao plans, as will be discussed under Working Paper 14 on innovation in innovation in the Executive Committee. Our working paper advocates that Icao should strengthen its multidisciplinary approach across the whole spectrum of the aviation system. It is essential that Icao applies and promotes an agile and performance risk-based approach for the development of the required Icao provisions and standards. The implementation of the operational improvements in the GAMP will require different strategies. It is necessary to have a shared understanding of the basic building blocks as baseline of the ASBU framework. The new GAMP performance catalog can assist the decision makers by the selection of GAMP elements for their specific performance needs. And it is important to underline the need for civil-military cooperation, to seek for cost-effective solutions through the exchange of best practices, and to preserve the no country left behind notion. We would like to make two concrete proposals to Icao for next steps. Firstly, we would like to request Icao to open up the possibility that large-scale ATM modernization programs undertake the development of Icao provisions and other material in support of selected GAMP elements, as well as the development and operational validation of ASBU elements. The work by these programs should be coordinated with the Secretariat and be based on formal and transparent agreements, which, for example, would also identify the Icao panels to be involved or consulted. This proposed approach will mobilize more resources to realize the ambitious plans presented in the GAMP. Secondly, we would like to request Icao to develop key principles for the setup of the needed global operational services, with the aim to have cost-effective implementation and operations and to ensure global consistency and interoperability in case of a regional setup and maintenance of these operational services. And Icao should play a facilitating role for these services and not get involved in operational service provision. We would also like to express our support to Information Paper 378 of the Republic of Korea, which contains information complementary to our working paper. In conclusion, I would like to invite the Assembly to accept the recommendations as set out in the Executive Summary of Working Paper 84. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, the Netherlands. I'll now invite the United Arab Emirates to present Working Paper 150. UAE, you have the floor.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. في البداية تود دولة الإمارات العربية.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United Arab Emirates would like to congratulate you on your chairmanship of this technical commission. I am presenting Working Paper 150, Expediting ASBU Work. This paper describes a globally harmonized standardization process for the modernization of air navigation systems through the implementation of ASBUs. And we need an efficient environment in order to be able to benefit from investments made in air services management, and specifically air traffic management systems. The UAE would like to praise the efforts, consistent efforts made by Icao on the ASBU system. The UAE have developed a program for the ATM strategy 2015-2030. It is for implementing the ASBU modules. And the airlines should be able to benefit from the implementation of the ASBUs faster. This will enhance interoperability and enhance this at the global level. The ASBUs need to be implemented at the regional and the national level. And of course, thus we need to encourage strategic investment in order to improve operational implementation. We have long-term goals for this area, and this will be also important on the economic level. The UAE is always interested in encouraging long-term strategic investment to improve the operations. We need to have compatible and interoperable systems, and sometimes this results in delays in implementation. So in conclusion, the UAE would like Icao to expedite the development of the Icao guidelines so that we can improve the standards. Thank you. Regarding the ASBUs, thank you.
Thank you very much, UAE. I'll now invite Equatorial Guinea to present Working Paper 158 on behalf of the AFCAC member states. Equatorial Guinea, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. First, allow me to congratulate you on your election to the chairmanship of the Technical Commission, and I extend warm greetings to all my colleagues from the countries around the world. Equatorial Guinea is presenting Working Paper 158 on the Regional System-Wide Information Management System, representing 54 member states of AFCAC. This working paper underlines the need to define and integrate the requirements for the interoperable SWIM system in regional air navigation plans and the global plan, so as to ensure harmonized information at the global level in accordance with document 1003439. As a result, we invite the Assembly to request Icao to coordinate globally through the respective planning and implementation regional groups to define and incorporate SWIM global interoperability framework, layers within the respective regional and global air navigation plans. The Assembly is invited to request Icao to give guidance to states and industry regarding uniform specifications provided to service providers so as to ensure interoperability and transparency across the systems under SWIM. And last but not least, include in the SWIM governance framework coordination between stakeholders at the regional level to be undertaken in an effort to prevent security breaches and cyber attacks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Equatorial Guinea. I'll now invite Tunisia to present Working Paper 156 on behalf of the AFCAC member states. Tunisia, you have the floor.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. السادة ممثلي الدول الأعضاء المحترمين نيابة عن 54.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable representatives, on behalf of the 54 contrasting states of AFCAC, the Republic of Tunisia has the honor to present Working Paper 156 regarding the application of the Basic Building Blocks Framework for Aeronautical Information Management. The proposed edition of the GANP introduces the Basic Building Blocks Framework, outlining the foundation for a robust air navigation system by defining the essential air navigation services that shall be provided for international civil aviation. While in the same edition, the Aviation Block Upgrade ASBU framework outlines scalable implementation of operational improvements to be implemented. Data quality is at the root of any baseline service in aeronautical information services, and therefore we would like to request the Assembly to include the provision of quality assured aeronautical data and information as part of BBB, and to develop provisions related to the harmonization of aeronautical information exchange models, AIXM, and their evolutions, to guide the implementation of operational improvements identified for aeronautical information management, and to request Icao to continue its support for the establishment and implementation of centralized regional databases as part of the AFICAD concept. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Tunisia. It's now the turn of Singapore to present Working Paper 212.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Working Paper 212 talks about the importance of a performance-based approach in air traffic management. Icao has published Doc 9883, Manual on Global Performance of the Air Navigation System, to detail the benefits of adopting a performance-based approach to meet requirements. Additionally, the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan contains 19 KPIs to facilitate the performance-based approach and management to improve ATM operations. However, there is a lack of guidance to support states and administrations in the implementation of a performance-based approach, as well as in the identification of stakeholders' involvement. Singapore, together with Japan, Thailand, the United States, and CANSO, would like to call for all states to support Icao in the development of a KPI framework guidance document for air navigation services providers to reap the full benefits of a performance-based approach. The work could be undertaken by the newly formed Global Icao Performance Expert Group, GPEC. Given the highly integrated aviation process involving multiple stakeholders, there is a need to include stakeholders' engagement for collaborative decision-making in the guidance document. Following its development, states, administrations, planning and implementation regional groups, as well as the aviation industry, are encouraged to utilize this guidance document together with the 6th edition of the GANT for the effective implementation of performance management. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Singapore. I'll now invite Saudi Arabia to present Working Paper 168. Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the honor, Chairperson, to present Working Paper 168 on GANP guidance and an analytical tool. The Global Air Navigation Plan is an essential tool for enhancing the aviation systems in order to accommodate and safely manage the expected growth in air traffic. The individual implementation of each element through the blocks of the aviation system block upgrade system may not accomplish the global objectives of the GAMP if it is not supported by an appropriate study of need and of a cost-benefit analysis. There is a need for a holistic guidance mechanism to assist different levels of stakeholders to choose the appropriate modules and elements for maximizing the safety and the operational and financial benefits within the framework of a timeline. The Assembly is invited to recommend that Icao develop a GAMP tool to assist the stakeholders at the national, regional, and global level in implementing the appropriate ASBU modules and elements. Secondly, the Assembly is invited to encourage states and stakeholders to take actions to achieve the objectives of the GAMP and provide the recommended data and information. And thirdly, the Assembly is invited to encourage states to share their experience on the implementation of the ASBU modules and elements, including an analysis of the methodologies used to select specific applications. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Saudi Arabia. I'll call on Colombia to present WP 450. Colombia, you have the floor.
Señor Presidente. Thank you, Chairman. On behalf of Colombia and the states of the Latin American Civil Aviation Commission, LACAC, it is my honor to present a working paper 450 on the interlinkage of national air navigation plans, the maintenance management systems, and the safety management systems, SMS, and in particular for ANSPs and aerodrome operators. We believe that interaction between these three instruments is vital for decision-making based on reliable data and information that is shared with a view to providing feedback on identification of operational improvements based on measurement of the performance of the air navigation system. This way, it will be possible to ensure transparency in prioritizing investment decisions in accordance with the safety levels desired. So the paper invites the Assembly to request that Icao, together with the states, work to this end and ensure effective interlinkages between the GAMP and the GASP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colombia. I'll now invite an international organization, Council, to present WP 203. It will be followed by a presentation by IATA on WP 191. In line with the standing rules, we will need at least 2 states to support the papers to enable us include the 2 papers in our discussions. So after Council's presentation, I will want to see states in support. Then we'll clear the screen, then IATA will present, and again, we need 2 or more states to support. Then we can include those 2 papers in the discussions. Thank you very much. Council, you have the floor to present WP 203.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This CANSO paper discusses the essentiality of Icao, states, air navigation service providers, and other service providers' approach to the implementation of the Global Air Navigation Plan, with the same common objective and collaboration as was evident in the development of the GAMP. This paper describes CANSO's commitments and provides insight to CANSO's long-range system objectives to advance key ATM initiatives and ensure the effective use of technology to increase ATM capabilities. CANSO looks to its partners for shared acceptance of our common goals and mutual understanding and commitment to the steps necessary to achieve it. The Assembly is invited to support the actions as described in the executive summary. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Any support for Council's paper? I see several. Australia, South Africa, Norway, Sweden. That's okay. So to be included in the discussion. Thank you very much. I'll now call on IATA to present Working Paper 191. IATA, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. IATA would like to present Working Paper 191. It has been estimated that there will be a doubling of air traffic demand over the next 2 decades. This year alone, we expect that there will be over 4.6 billion travelers, growing to over 8.2 billion by 2037. It is also clear that the desire for more connectivity will put increasing pressure on the air transport system, a system that is already experiencing many challenges. Although new technologies and capabilities are evolving at a rapid pace, there will be issues and events that have the potential to outpace new capabilities. This might imply reviewing items such as staffing levels, training, equipment, procurement, operations, and investment plans. States and ANSPs at every level of their business will need to consider how these challenges may impact their forward planning and implementation. To be clear, it will take more than just a single entity. As noted, partnerships between airports, ANSPs, regulators, airspace users, and governments will need to be solidified. Before any technology or procedural implementation takes place, a positive cost-benefit analysis justifying the investment must be performed in consultation with airspace users. There will always be a solution available, but the question to be asked is, will the technology proposed meet the need, or can the need be met with a change in procedures or culture? In this regard, IATA has identified 3 key areas and 2 actions listed in the executive summary that we believe should be considered when proposing improvements and addressing related infrastructure challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, IATA. Any support for IATA's paper? I see several. Thank you very much. So to be included. In concluding this batch, the information paper IP 378 on the screen, presented by Republic of Korea, is noted and will be listed in the report for this agenda item. I'll now give the floor to the Secretariat for any clarifications on the WPs. Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Secretariat would like to highlight that the proposed modifications to Assembly Resolution A39-12 in Working Paper 24, together with the already discussed modifications proposed in Working Paper 51, complete the full proposed amendments to Assembly Resolution A39-12. The Secretariat would also like to inform the Commission that following Recommendation 1.1/1 and Recommendation 4.3/1 from the 13th Air Navigation Conference, Icao formed a group of experts to develop and maintain the future editions of the Global Air Navigation Plan. The implementation obligations, as well as the reporting and compliance of the basic building blocks, do not entail any additional implementation obligations or specific reporting mechanisms for states. Also, following Recommendation 3.1/1 from the 13th Air Navigation Conference, the harmonization of information exchange model is already ongoing as part of the Icao Work Program. A performance-driven strategic planning tool, ANSPA, which allows the identification of appropriate ASBU elements for different operating environments is publicly available in the GAN portal and ready for validation. The Secretariat recognizes, however, that ANSPA would have to be further enhanced in order to meet specific requirements in terms of automation and data analysis. The Secretariat would like, however, to encourage all aviation stakeholders to use the tool and provide feedback to Icao for its improvement. Finally, the Secretariat would also like to inform that following Recommendation 1.2/1 from the 13th Air Navigation Conference, Icao has enabled a capability within the GAN portal to allow states and other aviation stakeholders to share relevant implementation information by ASBU element. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Secretariat, for the clarifications. I'll now open the floor for discussions, comments, and suggestions. South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. South Africa would like to commend the Council for finalizing the GANP, the 6th edition of the GANP. We believe that it will make our life easier. We also want to support Working Paper 230 from Australia. South Africa supports the contents of the working paper in its entirety, particularly the recommendation number D, which calls for the Icao to form a GANP study group to develop and maintain future edition of the GANP. The use of the same type of terms of reference, we believe that if adopted, will ensure that the GANP remains current and relevant at all times. South Africa would also like to support Working Paper 158. System-wide information management, we all know as ATM community to be key towards achieving the safe, efficient, and sustainable ATM. I'm of the view that we shouldn't expect the OEMs to ensure that the system integration happens. We should take it upon ourselves as states to make sure that we finalize the terms of, the guidance material to address the issue of system interoperability. We also like to support the Co-Council Working Paper number 24. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, South Africa. Italy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Italy supports the working paper 8.4 presented by the European Union and shares the principles underlining in this document. The subsistence growth in air traffic recorded in the last years and forecasted for the future requires the modernization and technological system and the development of airport infrastructure in order to improve airport operating capacity levels and support the satisfaction of the traffic demand. There is a need to improve the integration between GAMP and GASP and the digitalization and the transformation of air navigation and ATM. Moreover, it's important to highlight that in order to adapt the regulatory framework to the fast changing of the global air navigation air transport scenario, it's desirable a more proactive approach from Icao in the developing new and more flexible rules, taking into account the performance-based procedures, analysis, and the new available technologies for keeping the pace of the aviation industry. Finally, Italy believes that a more effective management of air traffic management can face the lack of capacity in the high traffic volume airports. At the same time, Italy supports the working paper 156 presented by African Civil Aviation Commission, the working paper 212 presented by Singapore, and the working paper 215 presented also by Singapore. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Italy. United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The United States supports Working Paper 24 and 84. We support the updated Global Air Navigation Plan and the new multi-layer structure. The United States also supports the vision of the GAMP that lays out the ultimate objectives of the air navigation system, as well as the emerging challenges and opportunities stemming from aviation and technology trends. Thank you.
Thank you very much, United States. It's now the turn of Venezuela to take the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chairman. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela supports the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan as a strategic direction for global air navigation, and the proposed revision of Resolution A3912 as described in Working Paper 24. Also, we are in accordance with the GAMP guidance for national strategies to reduce CO2 emissions. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela supports the request of Australia in their paper on the basis of the outcomes of the 13th Air Navigation Conference. We think it's what's suggested in paper 150 is worthwhile. Standards for technologies for ASBU implementation. We need to have situational awareness and know where we're going, and industry needs to understand what ANSPs require. We support paper 212 and guidance on KPIs to help states. We also support IATA's paper 191, and we give our full support for paper 450 presented by Colombia. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Venezuela. Generally, I see a lot of support for all the working papers, so please keep your intervention very, very short. I have a very full screen. I'll call on Portugal to take the floor. Portugal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to express the Portuguese support to Working Paper 24 on a comprehensive strategy for air navigation, endorsement of the updated Global Air Navigation Plan, and the proposed maintenance process that this working paper refers to. We feel it fulfills the requirements defined at the Air Navigation Conference 13. The Global Air Navigation Plan is the utmost importance to Europe, as Finland, on behalf of the European Union and its member states, the other member states of the European Civil Aviation Conference, and Eurocontrol, will refer to during the presentation of the Working Paper 84, which regards the Global Air Navigation Plan and air traffic management modernization. Throughout Working Paper 24, the Council of Icao addresses the importance of the GAMP and invites the Assembly to endorse its 6th edition. Portugal fully supports this initiative. Portugal would like to emphasize the importance to further maintain and improve the GAMP subject to the specific maintenance process. Considering the availability of the strategic level in its current format on the portal and the lack of versioning and dating, we would like to underscore that this document should be frozen until a next assembly endorse and update. The 6th edition of GAMP is a good starting point with a new structure. However, several papers express the need for further improvements, which we also support. In particular, we would like to remind the discussions which took place at the Air Navigation Conference 13 and the agreement reached that the strategic level shall map the global technical level recommendation 1.21 refer. All these documents should be considered as priority by the newly created following Air Navigation Conference 13 Outcomes GAMP study group. Portugal would like to take this opportunity of stressing the importance for all of us in making the GAMP study group a truly representative group of global aviation with a balanced state and industry participation. we would like to emphasize that GAMP should embrace both GASP and GAZEP. Only the full consistency between these three strategic plans can help drive the air navigation system to an improvement stage where all stakeholders share its benefits. GAMP should also embrace the plans for innovation. Furthermore, Portugal would like to point out that improvements in the GAMP serve a wider environmental objective beyond the reduction of CO2. States should consider operational improvement as part of their national strategy to reduce the environmental impact of the aviation. This is the main reason why Portugal supports a change to the amended resolution as proposed. We therefore would like to propose the following change to the amended resolution Icao Global Planning for Safety and Air Navigation. Paragraph 8 should read as follows, quote, calls upon states to take into consideration the GAMP guidelines for the implementation of operational improvements as part of their national strategy to reduce the environmental impact, including particular CO2 emissions for international aviation. Furthermore, at Appendix B, Global Air Navigation Plan, paragraph 8, we suggest the following change, quote, urges states that are developing new generation air navigation plans for their own air navigation modernization to coordinate with Icao and align their plans so as to ensure regional and global compatibility and harmonization, unquote. We would like to propose some minor amendments to the draft resolution for adoption by the 40th session of the Assembly. In order to expedite the procedure of this meeting, we will present a written proposal to the Secretariat for distribution to the members of the Commission. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your attention.
Thank you very much, Portugal. The intervention was just like a full presentation of a working paper. But I think your points are well noted. I mean, you are sort of asking for a freeze on the GAMP pending further study and amendments to the draft resolutions. And again, it's a bit late in the day to ask for major amendments to the text, you know, in line with our rules. I am saying that because Singapore's earlier amendment was just to ensure consistency and clarity and alignment with an existing text. And I don't know if the Secretariat has any comments on Portugal's proposals, but that's my thoughts. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Portugal for the proposal for the amendments to the text. As the chairman has said, it is very late in our process for amendments to be proposed that are substantive from the perspective of many of the members of the Technical Commission and without coordination that is substantive with other commissions of the Assembly, that particularly the executive, where issues related to environment are normally addressed. So the Secretariat urges caution in opening your deliberations to amendments of this nature in this fashion, because you do not have the time allocated during the Assembly to substantively address these kinds of changes. Having said that, if the Commission itself shows overwhelming support, then we would be compelled to take your desires on board. We're in your hands. But opening that procedural change puts many states at a disadvantage where proposals are being brought forward and where they do not align with previously existing Icao guidance or policy. For your consideration, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretariat, for the clarification. Our attention has been drawn to the fact that a number of the microphones on row I do not work. It means countries like Romania, Russia, Rwanda may be affected. So, okay, and there are others. Thailand is not working, and other countries, quite a lot. Togo doesn't work. So in case you need to make an intervention, you could just raise your card and we'll call you. You could use a microphone adjacent to you. Please bear with us. Technology is still not perfect. We keep on improving. Thank you very much. So, yes, we've noted Kenya, Peru. See, I need to go for an eye test. Ooh. Kenya, Peru, Jordan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Ethiopia. It looks like everything is not working. Okay, a number of states have already requested for the floor. We want to deal with those states first. Austria, you have the floor. It looks like Austria's mic is not working. Dominican Republic, could you try your mic? Dominican Republic.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chairman. The Dominican Republic would like to express its support for Working Paper 450 presented by Colombia with the support of a number of LACAC member states. Working Paper 84 presented by Finland on behalf of the EU. We also support Working Paper 158 presented by Equatorial Guinea on behalf of the 54 AFCAC states. Finally, we support the 6th edition of the GAMP as set out in Working Paper 24 presented by the Council of Icao. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Dominican Republic. Greece, I'll call you, but Senegal stand first, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman. Senegal is taking the floor for the first time, and so we would like to congratulate you on your election and wish you every success in the work. Senegal would like to strongly support Working Paper 156 presented by Tunisia on behalf of the 54 states of AFCAC on application of the basic building blocks for aeronautical information management. It should be noted that Icao has developed the BBs as an integral part of the 6th edition of the GAMP so as to ensure basic air navigation services. The BBBs define the fundamentals for all air navigation systems and basic requirements. As it has been said, lack of integration and quality data on safety should be given careful consideration in the new edition. And we should also take account of what is set out in the BBB document. With regard to data quality, modules in AIS to AIM transition should also be covered in the GAMP BBBs So Senegal is requesting Icao to include a provision of quality data and information as part of the BBB framework. And we especially support B and C in Working Paper 156. To conclude, Senegal commends the Council on presenting Working Paper 24 and the update of the GAMP. We support Singapore's Paper 212. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senegal. Ethiopia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Delegation of Ethiopia would like to support the Working Paper 24 presented by the Secretariat and AFCAC working papers presented by Equatorial Guinea and Tunisia and other papers which will help to improve implementation of the GAMP 6th edition, the national level and global level, which will help interoperability, integrity, and collaboration between states. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ethiopia. Australia, it's your turn. All right. We still have a lot of challenges. We'll resolve all these very shortly. Technicians are working around the clock to solve them. Let's try Uruguay.
Thank you, Chairman. With regard to Working Paper 150 and long-term initiatives, an increase in strategic investment in the long term is necessary to upgrade air navigation systems, and this will give us more efficient and safe systems in coming years. And we will need to find agreed homogeneous solutions that can be evolved so as to mitigate uncertainty in industry. We need technical, stable specifications for the purpose of implementing the ASB blocks. So we support paper 150 presented by the UAE. With regard to paper 212, ANSPs have a commitment along with the aerodrome operators and ground handlers with regard to collaborative decision-making, and this is intended to facilitate the prioritization of objectives and targets and have a performance-based measurement under the GAMP, and we believe that Icao could produce a guidance document on performance measurement, which would support processes to plan, implement, and monitor activities so as to improve system performance and interlinkages. We could assign this work to the relevant panel and control costs. With regard to Working Paper 450, Uruguay supports Working Paper 212 presented by Singapore, we forgot to mention. And on paper 450, we need to develop interlinkages for the three elements, the national plans, the MMS and the SMS for ANSPs, and make sure that they all dovetail and function together effectively so as to have effective decision-making that is timely and cost-efficient, with the aim of building a robust, integrated and scalable aviation system in accordance with the highest safety standards. Uruguay supports paper 450 by Colombia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uruguay. Austria?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Austria would like to support Working Paper 191 presented by IATA and encourage Icao to support ongoing work to ensure ATM evolution and enhance its efficiency. To solve the capacity challenges in short term through global adoption of air traffic flow management and advanced collaborative decision-making processes and infrastructure adoptions is crucial and mandatory. Additionally, Austria supports as well Working Paper 150 presented by United Arab Emirates and the development of open technical standards. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Austria. Argentina.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The delegation of Argentina strongly supports the latest edition of the GAMP and performance-based approach. We believe that the growth in industry needs to be supported by air navigation developments, and the GAMP provides a strategy to achieve those objectives in our countries and regions, and also all of the technical tools for implementation of the BBBs. We have identified 5 main points: global coordination and regional coordination of the air navigation plans, standardization, the need for clear documentation and flow of information, and clear instructions for service providers, and basic documents for allocating resources and managing risk. We would also like to highlight the need to assess air navigation infrastructure. This is a growing challenge, which is extremely important. We support Working Papers 24, 230, 450, 84, 212, 158, and 191. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Argentina. It's now the turn of Republic of Korea to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Secretariat, for your clarification. The Republic of Korea supports the Secretariat Working Paper 24 and welcomes the updated Global Air Navigation Plan. The new GAMP will serve as a strong foundation for innovation of global air navigation and expected ATM modernization. In this regard, we would like to emphasize inter-regional harmonization and cooperation and request the Icao and regions to develop an inter-regional harmonization mechanism for a balanced development of air navigation system in line with the Icao's no country and region left behind initiative. And we also in strong supported Working Paper Area 4 by European member states. This working paper shows us as the right direction forward for the global strategies and plan. In particular, the strategic alignment and cross-domain approach between GAMP and GASP able more effective and efficient and interoperable interactive planning and implementation of 2 global plans. Republic of Korea also agree with the need to supplement the GAMP executive summary, which is presented by Australia, and is of the view to identifying the clarified the key policies and priorities will be a great help in improving the understanding of all aviation stakeholders. We also express our support to AFCA member states Working Paper 156 and Council's Working Paper 203 and IATA's 191 and Singapore's Working Paper on KPI framework guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Korea. We invite the Kingdom of Jordan to take the floor. Jordan.
Thank you, Chairman.
تدعم المملكة أوراق العمل المقدمة من قبل.
We support the working paper presented by the Council of Icao 24, and we support working paper 150 presented by the United Arab Emirates on the globally harmonized process for upgrades of air navigation systems, and we support Saudi Arabia's paper 168 on a pedagogical tool for guidance and implementation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sweden, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The necessary modernization of ATM spurred by traffic growth and new entrants, the rapid pace of innovation and the related evolution of business models providing opportunities as well as challenges, necessitates more than ever collaboration among all stakeholders to ensure safe and orderly implementation. As pointed out in Working Paper 203, to overcome today's ATM constraints, we should aim at enhancement of the ATM infrastructure as well as more cross-domain and cross-border initiatives to ensure a global, interoperable and seamless network as advocated for in our Working Paper 85 on global collaborative network-centric approach. We would therefore like to support and thank Council for its willingness to commit and contribute to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sweden. Republic of Togo, you have the floor.
Okay. Bonjour.
Thank you, Chairman. It's the first time I'm taking the floor, so I'd like to congratulate you. Togo supports Working Paper 24, 156, 158, and 212. And 156 and 158 were presented by Equatorial Guinea and Tunisia on behalf of the African countries. GAMP is going to be very important in future. So we think these papers are very important in inviting the Assembly to give this consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Togo. Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as my previous speaker, we support Working Paper 156 presented by AFCAC, and while having the floor, we equally support the Working Paper 168 by Saudi Arabia. We endorse the need to provide guidance on the decision-making process for GAMP implementation. And furthermore, we would like to stress the importance of understanding the concept of performance as highlighted in the Working Paper 212 presented by Singapore. Finally, Switzerland would recommend to refer the subject to the GAMP study group for discussion and for elaborating a proposal with concrete actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Switzerland. Peru, you have the floor.
Gracias. Thank you, Chairman. The state of Peru supports the working paper presented by Colombia on guidance for interlinkages between the air navigation plans at the national level and the MMS and SMS. In addition, we support working paper 156 by AFCAC, recognizing the importance of including quality aeronautical information and data in the BBBs. We also support working papers 212 by Singapore and 150 presented by the Emirates. Thank you.
Thank you, Peru. Russian Federation, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have waited for a long time to speak, and we congratulate you on being chairman, and it's very worthy selection. I have full confidence in your professionalism and competency, and it means that the work of this commission will be successful and effective. The Russian Federation supports the working paper 24 on the GAMP. We also support working paper 168 by Saudi Arabia. And we would like to note that the proposal in this document, this paper, adds an approach, performance-based approach described in the manual on performance-based approaches. And we think this is extremely important to improve the ATM. And because certain modules of the ASBU will give a good effect for the regions. However, this desired effect may not be achieved by other countries in the region. So Russia would like to strengthen the point on subparagraph C, and we would like to emphasize that it's very important to show the analysis, the methodologies used for analysis that states have used to make specific improvements. I believe that it is important for us to do promotion of this tool now that we have it, and so that states know that it's available and that they can use it, taking into consideration the fact that not all of the information is provided in all of the Icao working languages. We also support the paper presented by Colombia and supported by the LACA countries, as including the proposed actions. And we would ask to add an action which would underscore that we also need to develop guidance material on the BBB system at the regional and national levels. In conclusion, we would like to express our support for document 230 presented by Australia and document working paper 150 presented by the United Arab Emirates. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Russian Federation. I now invite Australia to take the floor.
Good news. Thank you, Chair. I'm here. Australia would like to support Singapore's papers 212 and 215. Australia would particularly like to support the paper by the EU 84 and highlight that there are several elements there that not only Icao probably should look at, but look like they'd be appropriately dealt with by the GAMP study group, including, for example, the question of being very clear about what a BBB actually is. And I think that's very important because I read the AFCAC papers 156 and 158, and I noticed they talk about the BBBs 1 minute and the next minute they're talking about the ASBUs, so it will be really clear. It's very important for all of us to be making sure they are two quite distinct terms, but the interconnection between the two has to be clearly explained. Australia would also like to comment on, is with the Secretary on the idea of making changes to resolutions on the fly, if you pardon the pun. This is not a great practice, and really I think the best way, if that was going to be attempted, change the resolution, which my colleague from Portugal seemed reasonable, but it's not, I just heard it then, so if that was going to be done at this assembly, they would have to be distributed pretty quickly, I suspect, by the Secretariat to all those people who are here. Hopefully there may be other methods by which Portugal could pursue those suggested changes, whether that be through the Navigation Commission or the Council or through the study group, but let's say there's hopefully a remedy for that concern. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Australia, for your remedies. I'll invite Thailand to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thailand supports the endorsement of the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan and the adoption of the proposed resolutions as presented in the Working Paper 24. However, We are in the view that in order for us to be able to achieve the seamless gate-to-gate trajectory-based operation as envisioned by Icao, the leading role of Icao in identifying the common operational objectives, the common implementation priority, and the synchronized target implementation timeframe among states for ASBU elements required along the major traffic flows is still necessary. We are also of the opinion that assistance from Icao, particularly the regional office, in facilitating the conduct of collaborative activities to raise awareness on key air traffic management concepts and in monitoring states' implementation progress as well as timeline is needed to ensure the harmonization among us and the alignment with global and regional plans. Additionally, Thailand welcomes Working Paper 84 presented by EU, ECAC, and Eurocontrol. In particular, we share the similar view on the global services. However, considering the different levels of development capabilities among regions, identification by Icao on the key principles to set up and maintain the global services may not be sufficient for effective global implementation. We therefore see that there is still a need for Icao to develop implementation guidance to ensure global consistency and interoperability. Thank you.
Thank you, Thailand. Colombia, you have the floor.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chairman. First, we would like to support Working Paper 24 by the Council. And we are grateful for the new interactive electronic version of the GAMP that's now available to all states and stakeholders. Second, we support the papers, and I won't go into the details, but in particular we support 215 by Singapore, 230 by Australia, 84 by the Netherlands, and 150 by the Emirates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colombia. A number of states raised their flags because their mics were not working. And I have Iceland, Bangladesh, Greece, Kenya, and Nepal in that order. Let's try to keep it short so that at least we can have lunch at 12. We have just 4 minutes. So on average, 1 minute per contributor. Iceland, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chairman, delegates, Iceland supports Working Paper 84 in support of the updated Global Air Navigation Plan and its maintenance process. And in this relation, Iceland wants to mention the importance of Icao coordinating and adapting a multidisciplinary approach across the whole spectrum of the aviation system, including considering proportionality and new initiatives, technology and innovation, and thereby Iceland wants to recognize the importance of the suggestions in this paper for Icao to develop in line with these suggestions the principles and approach to the making of provisions and standards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iceland. Bangladesh, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Bangladesh supports the concept presented in two working paper 156 and 158 by the member of AFCAC. In regard to working paper 156, while Bangladesh values that timely and quality assured aeronautical data and information essential for safety in-flight operation, at the same time, we would like to bring the notice that transition from AIS to AM would be better achieved if development of provision related to harmonization of AIXM is considered. And in regard to working paper 158, we sincerely hope that defining the different layers of SWIM global network framework, SWIM infrastructure, such as a regional database and information exchange model, such as AIXM and ETOD, will provide and implementation methodology to guide contracting states to achieve a SWIM-enabled environment. Bangladesh also supports the working paper 150 presented by UAE and working paper 168 presented by Saudi Arabia. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bangladesh. Greece, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since Greece takes the floor for the first time, we would like to congratulate and wish you best of success. Greece supports the working paper 84 presented by European Union. Furthermore, we consider that the GAMP and GASP and the other relevant plans should be well and transparently maintained, consistent and complementary, enabling the alignment of global, regional and national efforts for timely ATM modernization with due regard to specific performance needs, having involved all stakeholders and preserving the No Country Left Behind initiative. On this direction, we would like to support the working paper 168 of Saudi Arabia, 156 of the AFCAC, 215 by Singapore, co-sponsored by Japan, Thailand, and the other states, 150 of United Arab Emirates, and 230 by Australia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Greece. It's 12 noon on the dot, and we still have a number of states and international organizations which want to intervene. But we will just ask for 5 minutes from the interpreters to cover a few. Thank you very much for your approval. Appreciate it. Kenya, you have the floor.
Chairman. Kenya wishes to support the adoption of the 6th edition of the Global Air Navigation Plan as requested in the various paper, the Secretariat paper, the Singapore paper 215, but also wish to draw the attention of the Assembly that various papers similarly express challenges that as we implement the new edition of the GANP, we have to address through various mechanisms. I'm in reference to AFCAC Working Paper 156 and the Eurocontrol Working Paper 84 specifically, item F. And for the global services such as system-wide information management, as expressed in Working Paper number 84, I wish to request the Assembly to note the information domains such as the digital AIM, which will feed into these global services are already, we've seen a lot of challenges being experienced, hence the need to quickly move in and harmonize and come up with key principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. Nepal, you have the floor.
Good morning, Chair. Nepal fully supports the paper WP 24 presented by Icao, working paper 230 presented by Australia, and working paper 84 presented by EU, ECAC, and Eurocontrol, as these papers relate to ATM modernization, including the enhancement of ANS air navigation safety, capacity, and efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take 2 more papers, 2 more presentations, and we'll break for lunch. After lunch, we will consider the request by the international organizations to intervene. So I now invite Spain, followed by Bolivia, Nicaragua, Oman, Egypt. You have your intervention after lunch. The same with ACI, IFATCA, and councils. Spain and Bolivia will have the last word. Spain, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon. On Working Paper 24, we support what was said by Portugal, proposing modification to the draft resolution. We believe that the GAMP has a positive effect in environmental impacts aside from CO2 emissions reductions, and we believe that the proposed drafting change merits the consideration of delegates. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Spain. And Bolivia, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Bolivia would like to support paper 450 by Colombia. We agree with Uruguay about the importance of coordinating across the various components of the GAMP for proper implementation using the ASBU methodology. And we also support, that's why we support 450 by Colombia. We also support IATA's paper 191. Which provides useful data. It's important for states to plan infrastructure implementation so as to meet the growing demands in traffic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bolivia. So we'll break at this point for lunch. After lunch, we'll continue the discussions on the working papers for this batch. And Finland has been so gracious to provide lunch for us at the delegates' lounge on the 3rd floor. Let's all be seated by 1:50 p.m. prompt to enable us to start at 2 on the dot. So please be back by 1:50 and we start at 2 o'clock. Bon appetit, enjoy your lunch.